Wildlife comes naturally to Muscatatuck. Why does it come here? Why does it thrive here? Sit back and we'll give you an unusual bird's-eye perspective of this refuge to help you understand this unique and beautiful place. A bird's-eye view of Muscatatuck is the one seen by the refuge's most numerous visitors, wildlife visitors. Twice a year, hundreds of thousands of migrating birds fly over Indiana on their way to summer nesting sites here and further north, or winter resting and feeding grounds further south. After long hours of flying over farmlands and cities, suddenly the bird's sharp eyes see 1,500 acres of shining wetlands and sparkling lakes fringed by open meadows, and nearly 4,000 acres of thick woodlands, a patchwork oasis of welcoming habitats. 200 years ago, the bird's-eye view along the route was very different. Endless woodlands covered the terrain, and lush wetlands fringed the network of rivers that crossed the central states. But the scenery was about to change. As settlers arrived, they cleared the land for crops. In most parts of Indiana, farmers thrived, and the natural areas grew further and further apart until 75% of the forests had been felled and 85% of the wetlands drained. But Muscatatuck was different. Here, farming was often difficult. The low-lying fields were hard to drain, and the farms were often flooded. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recognized a different potential in this land, and in 1966, they were able to open Indiana's first national wildlife refuge here. Today, it stretches over nearly 8,000 acres, 5 miles long by 3 miles wide. Today, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has over 500 national wildlife refuges nationwide, and more are added each year. Our mission here is to conserve, protect, and enhance fish and wildlife and their habitat for the continuing benefit of the American people. The National Wildlife Refuge System is the only network of federal lands specifically dedicated to wildlife and habitat conservation. Early spring in Muscatatuck. The flyway over the refuge is busy with birds on their long migrations to their nesting grounds here to Canada and Alaska. Some have come from as far away as South America. Muscatatuck puts out a welcome mat, with its wetlands, meadows, and woodlands just greening up for spring. Water has been moved around the refuge through pipes and control structures to provide ideal habitats for the weary migrants. If you're a shorebird, the mudflats will catch your eye. Looks like there'll be plenty of probing spots there. The mudflats are created by draining low open areas surrounded by dikes, and come fall, they'll serve a very different purpose. If you're a migrant goose or a duck, you'll most likely head for the shallow water of the marshes. It might be a little crowded, up to 15,000 birds at peak time, but there's plenty of food for everybody. Once you've rested and fed for a few days, you'll be ready to fly on further north. An occasional tundra swan might glide in on broad, strong wings and share your feeding marsh. Or, if you're a great blue heron, the awesomeness of a bald eagle crossing your fishing spot might cause a moment of alarm. All through the marshes is lush vegetation which provides good nesting sites, so you might decide to stay on for the summer. If you do, you'll have plenty of noisy neighbors, and some nosy ones too. River otters are making a comeback at Muscatatuck, thanks to a reintroduction program launched here in 1995 by the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. Muscatatuck's expansive wetlands and abundant fish made it a perfect site. Once common in Indiana, river otters were wiped out by overtrapping and the draining of most of the state's wetlands. Water is abundant here, and the key to attracting wildlife is water. You know, that hydrogen and oxygen stuff that falls from the sky. Water winds down creeks, collects in marshes, and eventually makes big rivers. The refuge rightly takes its name from the river which forms its southern boundary. A Plankashaw Indian word, Muscatatuck, means land of winding waters. And those winding waters and the creeks leading to it are today the lifeblood of the refuge. One of the refuge's most colorful birds is the wood duck. If you were a wood duck, what sort of real estate would make you choose Muscatatuck for your year-round home? You're a cut above those other ducks who like to nest on the ground. You're looking for something with a view, something a little historical. If you're a wood duck, that means a hole in an old tree. And do we have a deal for you? Areas of lowland woods on the refuge are flooded and drained throughout the year so that the trees stay healthy and provide wood ducks with the nesting habitat they need. With so little bottomland forest left elsewhere in the state, Muscatatuck is vital to the wood duck population. Soon after you've chosen your nesting hole and built your nest, the woods around you fill with song as migrating warblers and other songbirds pass through or find themselves a safe nesting spot. For many endangered or threatened species, national wildlife refuges such as Muscatatuck are the difference between survival and extinction. As wetlands have been drained and forests felled, national wildlife refuges play an increasingly vital role in preserving the diversity of our wildlife for future generations. By protecting and maintaining rare and biologically rich ecosystems, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service provides habitats for migratory and resident wildlife species that now have few places to go. By May, your eggs have hatched, and you're out early in the morning with a flotilla of ducklings following you. You'll pass stately great egrets who have recently arrived on the refuge, and you might run into one of Muscatatuck's other full-time residents, the copper-belly water snake. It's no threat to your youngsters, though. This beautiful and harmless snake is common on the refuge, but rare elsewhere because of the loss of wetland habitats nationally. In other parts of its range, the copper-belly water snake is on the federal threatened species list. Other full-time residents of the refuge will also cross your path. Raccoons and white-tailed deer, great blue herons and turkeys are all part of Muscatatuck's varied ecosystem. As the heat and humidity of summer begin to bear down on the land, your youngsters will be learning to fly